News at 7 starts now.
Houston Integrity splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy splashdown, waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time. From the pages of Jules Verne to a modern-day mission to the moon, a new chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts back on Earth.
What a splashdown it was, a 694,000-mile journey complete as the crew of the Artemis II mission successfully is back on Earth. It took a half century, but humans went back to the moon and safely returned. 10 days after blasting off from Kennedy Space Center, Christina Koch, Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, and Jeremy Hansen, they are back home. Now that splashdown, it happened at 5:07 p.m. our time, exactly what NASA had predicted. Thousands of experts involved in getting that rocket off the ground. People from all 50 states contributed to the mission. And you are taking a live look right now off the coast of San Diego. The splashdown happened. Now the crew, they have been flown to a helicopter. They are now on that Navy ship. Actually, they all were pulled up from a raft by helicopter, and now they are on that ship. Now, eventually from the ship, then they will be moved back on shore. Okay, so now I'm joined by Dr. Christopher Edwards from NAU. He joined us earlier in the week, I believe it was on Monday, to talk about the mission. And Dr. Edwards, I'm so glad to talk to you now because it was successful and you kind of, were watching throughout the mission. So, I mean, you have to be thrilled with everything that happened.
Yeah, I think this is a totally fantastic success. It went off without a hitch. Everybody is back safe on Earth, and there was some great work that the astronauts did, trailblazing the way all the way back to the lunar surface in missions to come.
Yeah, and so, we did not talk to you. There were a couple days in between, and we finally saw the images, like the dark side of the moon and some of those images. What was your reaction when you saw those?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time we talked, they were, had just we're making the transition just then to slingshot around the moon, and some of the images and data that have come back since. I've watched some of the NASA live feeds through Mission Control and the Science Operations Backroom, and just seeing all of the folks working so hard to collect the best data and images possible, and the interactions between the Science Backroom, like we talked about last time, and the crew was just totally fantastic. We're just seeing ways that Mission Control and astronauts are going to operate on the surface of the moon in the future. So it's really exciting to see how nicely that played out.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed talking to you last time because you explained how not everyone in the crew, they were a scientist at heart and by skill, frankly. And you had people on the ground who were basically guiding them to say, hey, look at that, capture that. And obviously they had tools on board to gather that information, but you also have people, on the crew that are not trained scientists. And so you have people like yourself, for example, who are an expert like that. So I really enjoyed kind of that perspective. And so, I mean, do you feel satisfied with the information that you're seeing that they were able to gather so far anyway?
Yeah, I mean, very satisfied, I think is the short way to put it. I think the things we're going to see next, we've really proven that the science backroom, I think at this point, can interact in real time with astronauts on the lunar surface. And the things we're going to see next, and the thing that I'm personally really excited about, is the fact that between ASU, U of A, NAU, we all have a stake in the upcoming lunar missions. We're all building instruments that astronauts may interact with on the surface. So we're not just talking about Nikon cameras anymore. We're talking about real scientific instruments that can help guide the astronauts. And, I think one of the recent astronaut candidates selected is Dr. Lauren Edgar, a good friend of mine. I certainly hope that we can build some great instruments for astronauts like her to use on the lunar surface going forward. And that's going to be just a totally game-changing experience than what we were able to do with the Apollo missions.
I'm just looking up right now because they're zoomed in right now, and it looks like that is Victor Glover, I believe, the astronaut there, and he is just off the helicopter. And so, yeah, they're kind of giving him some space. They're clapping. They're kind of saluting a little bit. I believe that's
yeah,
him.
I'm sure after being in that capsule for, I guess I heard like 9 days, exactly, or something along those lines, 9.5 days. Then waiting to get taken out of the capsule for the last about 2 hours. It's probably a pretty overwhelming experience for these folks.
Yeah, definitely. And it was really cool too. I mean, we kind of missed some of that. We showed like a very small glimpse of it, but we certainly were streaming it too. It was really dramatic when the helicopter was coming down to pull them, from the raft. I mean, it literally looked like this, it was obviously a lot bigger in person, but, when we're just watching it kind of from afar, it looks like a little dinghy, frankly, it is not that. But when this massive, helicopter is coming in to get them, just the wind that it is creating and the waves it is creating, it was really a dramatic, photo, video, and then, they're pulling them up. So that's really, that's a cool image. So there's Victor Glover there. And
I think, it's literally straight out of a movie, except it's not. It's real life.
Yes.
And these things are so dramatic. And I think, thinking about my couple of young kids at home, these are really inspiring moments that give people a lot of appreciation for the amazing things that humans can do when we all work together.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And actually, there are 2 astronauts. So there's another one sitting by Victor Glover. We're just taking a live shot right now for your information. And what they did was they had them 2 by 2. So that was kind of from our understanding, they were going to be moving them 2 by 2. So Victor is also with another member of the crew as well. And then what they're going to be doing is that they're going to be eventually moving them from this ship to shore. And then they are going to be able to be reunited with their family. Victor has a large family, a number of children who are extremely proud of him, his wife as well. And they're going to be reunited with their family, and then they're eventually going to be flown back to mission control, and then obviously kind of debrief and all of that. And it is a really exciting time for all of them. And there was also too, Dr. Edwards, there was a little, worry. People were a little worried, frankly, because the capsule, there was a little heat, there was a little part of the other capsule in the testing phase that had broken off, but they wanted to move forward anyway. Were you worried at all about that? Was that something that was on your radar at all?
Yeah, I mean, I know one of the big plans associated with Artemis is this technology and capacity building. And if you listened earlier to the administrator of NASA, Jared Isaacman, you're seeing, this plan push forward, right? Artemis II is not the end of the line, it's the start of the line. And the thing is that we need to learn from everything that's happened since then. And so what I can tell you is, definitely nervous. You're always nervous when any of these things happen because they depend on everything going right. There's just such little margin for error. But what I am confident in all of these situations is that there are hundreds, and in this case, probably thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people who worked through these problems, who, solved challenging simulations to try to ensure that any changes that needed to be made, or different panels that need to be glued on different ways, or in any of the situations that are entirely possible outcomes for worrying about these types of heat shield problems and things like that, those were all really, really thoroughly addressed. The best and the brightest working on these types of problems. It's really pretty amazing the types of things that we can do like this.
Yeah, and as the capsule was coming back with such force, and can you just really briefly describe how our atmosphere is able to slow that down?
Yeah, and so basically what happens is you use this heat shield, and that heat shield, through friction with the top of the atmosphere, reduces the speed of the capsule from something like 25,000 miles an hour down to speeds where they can deploy a parachute. And so you saw there were multiple segments where, if you watch the landing closely, you'll see okay, there was, this first re-entry where you slow down using that friction with the atmosphere. That heats up, you lose a lot of energy through heat and that friction. And then you get to a point where you start to deploy different phases of parachutes. So you see these drogues, which slow things down even further. And then finally, I won't lie, I was also nervous when the large parachutes deployed, because it looked like they weren't going to fully deploy all of a sudden. There's one that was kind of a little bit of a straggler. And the reality is that those parachutes are super tested, designed really well, simulated, put in a wind tunnel, everything you can imagine that you do to those parachutes. That's what would happen. And ultimately, those parachutes slow the descent rate down to about 17 miles an hour. And that's about the speed that you hit the surface of the ocean, which by the way, is like still not super slow. Like if you ran into something with your car at 17 miles an hour, you'd probably get some dents in your car, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was reading too, collectively, the 3 of those parachutes were like almost the size of a football field.
It's amazing. I mean, these things are huge, and it's very hard to understand the scale of things that we're talking about. 690,000 miles round trip. Just an amazing distances, amazing scales. Amazing technology that's associated with bringing all these folks home safely and sending them literally around the moon.
Yeah. So we are going to be going to break, and basically what is happening right now is they are walking the astronauts off the helicopter, and they have to do that because obviously they can't walk. I mean, they've been that's what they're going to be doing. So they already have walked. They've helped 2 of the astronauts walk off of a helicopter. And these are members of NASA, members of the Navy, and 2 of them have already kind of walked out of the view. And then they're going to do another one, and we're going to see that in view in just a moment. So we're going to see that, I believe. They're getting ready to do that. You can zoom into that real quick. And they're going to do that very quickly. I'm not sure what man that is, but you can see just how gingerly they're walking, how very careful they are. Seems to be doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, I don't know, sitting down all day at your desk and then, not using your muscles, getting up and being expected to, get on a boat, get in a helicopter, walk across a deck of another boat. They're definitely, their legs are tired, not used to doing that for 10 days or 9 days.
Yeah, you talk about a hero's welcome home. Well, Dr. Edwards, thank you so much for joining us to kind of break down everything. We really appreciate your expertise and such great news for NASA, the world, America, all of the above. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.